Well, I think formally, so to speak, I got thinking about how to look at things critically, which is, in my mind, what skepticism is all about. When I was a graduate student, in fact, it was then that I got a copy of the Skeptical Inquirer. And I think I got a copy of the Zetetic, come to think of it. This was in the mid-1970s. And I thought, well, wow, this is really interesting. Then, of course, as I was a young college professor, I was teaching at the University of Kentucky, and I became much more aware of creationism. Because as a physical anthropologist, I naturally was teaching evolution a lot, and I would get the pushback from a lot of these Kentucky kids who were told that evolution is simply not an acceptable kind of science. And so, I had to learn more about this. And then I learned about creation science, and that is very emblematic of a pseudoscience. And so I got more deeply into skepticism, partly through the creation science issue. I think so. Well, then, of course, as a physical anthropologist, naturally, I am very, very anxious that somebody discover a real Bigfoot or a real Yeti, because there's nothing that would make we physical anthropologists happier than if that was really the case. But, you read the accounts, and people keep looking, and people find samples, or they find footprints, or they find scalps, or they find whatever. And when these are analyzed, there's no there. And after a while, you begin to realize that as nice as it would be as a physical anthropologist to have another large primate discovered somewhere, you got to go with your head rather than your heart. And the evidence just isn't there. So it was partly through the creation science issue and partly through Bigfoot that I got interested in skepticism. Well, kind of personal career trajectory, really. I didn't get tenure at the University of Kentucky, and I spent a couple of more years in temporary jobs in academia. I taught for a couple of years at the University of Colorado, which was very enjoyable, great place, good colleagues. And then I was looking for a job, basically, and physical anthropology jobs are kind of few and far between. And lo and behold, this job as director of this new organization called the National Center for Science Education showed up on my radar in 1986. And I thought, I'm smart enough to run a small business. I know the science. I'm pretty good at communicating science. I've taught for 10 years or so. Let's see if I can do this. So I applied for the job, and the board of directors apparently thought I could do the job because they hired me. And I did that for the rest of my professional career of 27 more years. Oh, learning how to run a small business. Because the one thing that you don't really learn in academia is the real nuts and bolts things that are necessary to run a small business. And a nonprofit is a business. Every business, including nonprofits, have to run at a profit, because otherwise you go out of business. And if you want to be a successful nonprofit in achieving your aims, whatever your mission is, whatever your goal is to make the world a better place, which is what nonprofits are all about, you have to be financially stable to do this. The only difference between a for-profit and a nonprofit institution is that all of your profits in a nonprofit institution go back into your cause. They aren't distributed to a board of directors, but you have to run at a profit. So I had to learn how to run a small business. I had to learn how to meet payrolls. I had to learn how to raise money. I had to learn how to manage money in a way that would ensure that the National Center for Science Education could be funded every year and could continue to do its really important work. And I had to learn bookkeeping. I had to learn financial management. I had to learn fundraising. But, generally smart people can learn this sort of thing, and I was smart enough to figure it out. I have to say two. One that was totally invisible to the vast majority of people in this country, and that is the hundreds of teachers and school districts over the years that we have helped behind the scenes to solve problems regarding the teaching of science. The advice that we gave people, the assistance that we gave people to solve these problems, which in the 90+% of cases took place not in front of the cameras, not with the press knowing anything about it at all. And those kinds of contributions are hugely important for science education. The other major contribution that NCSE made over the years is a much more public contribution, and that was the Kitzmiller versus Dover trial, which was, we're taping this in 2015, in 2005, 10 years ago. Pretty amazing that this was that long ago. It's hard to believe that 10 years have passed. But this was the intelligent design trial in Dover, Pennsylvania, that challenged the Dover School Board's policy of requiring the teaching of intelligent design along with evolution in the public schools. And the court decision, the federal district court decision, was so strong that efforts to try to get intelligent design into the curriculum essentially evaporated. Within 6 months or so, there really weren't any more efforts to try to institute a de jure or a policy-based teaching of intelligent design. Now, we still have teachers who teach it. We still have teachers who teach creation science, but at least it's not being done because of some district or state policy. And that was very important, because if we had not won in Kitzmiller, there would be lots and lots of laws, lots and lots of school board policies weakening the teaching of evolution. Not right now. There aren't any court cases right now. Eventually, there's probably going to have to be a challenge to laws like Tennessee and Louisiana passed, where there's sort of a backdoor form of creationism. They're an effort to, without mentioning religion, without being overt about trying to promote a religious idea, they're trying to bring ideas in that would weaken the teaching of evolution by teaching material from the creationist literature without calling it that. And these academic freedom laws, or whatever they're going to be called day after tomorrow, are popping up every single year. Only 2 states have actually passed them. But basically, you can't challenge those kinds of laws on their face. You can't bring what lawyers call a facial challenge, because the wording is just too wishy-washy. You have to actually find a case where a teacher is bringing creationism into the classroom under the guise of this law, in order for you to go to a judge and say, see, we have to strike down this law because this is what's happening in its name. And we have not found the right kind of case for that yet. Oh yes, about 3 years ago we took on climate change as a parallel issue to evolution, because just as evolution is a well-supported scientific idea, for ideological reasons people oppose it being taught, teachers get beat up for teaching it. Climate change is a well-supported scientific idea, it's being opposed for ideological reasons, and teachers get beat up for trying to teach it. So we saw the parallels between these two educational problems and decided that our experience in dealing with evolution as a controversial issue might be able to be transferred over to the teaching of climate change issues as well. And although the circumstances are different, there are some laws that are attempted to be passed in state legislatures that would require the teaching of climate change denialism rather than just straight up good science. The issues are more general education of the public, and the issues are more providing information for teachers so that they can blunt so that they know how to deal with the kinds of questions that students may be bringing in from their parents or elsewhere when the teaching of climate change is being challenged in the classroom. Well, figuring out ways of getting information to teachers, because in the United States is such a huge country. Education is such a huge institution that reaching the science teachers is not an easy thing to do. We have a very decentralized education system. So, for example, there's no national registry of all science teachers. So it's very difficult to get information out to science teachers about how we can help them. We do deal with these science teacher associations like the National Science Teachers Association, the National Association of Biology Teachers, the geology teachers and physics teachers and chemistry teachers and so forth. That's a main way through which NCSE tries to reach teachers. And also we go to the science teacher conferences and try to do workshops for them. I'm doing more things that are fun that I haven't done before. I got a beehive now. I never did that before, but I'd been thinking about it for a long time. Our chicken's far away. I mean, there may be things around the house. My garden's looking a whole lot better. At the same time, I'm continuing service on some board of directors for associations and organizations that I've had for a couple of years. I am still giving talks. I'm still going to skeptics meetings and other professional meetings. So I'm enjoying life very much. Getting to know my husband, what's his name, a little bit better too. Very careful my first year and few months of my retirement, because I didn't want to get overcommitted to things. I mean, as soon as I announced that I was going to retire, a lot of organizations and societies said, "Oh, we'd like you to be on our board of directors." Thank you anyway. Give me a year or so. But I did just accept an invitation to serve on a board that I think has a very important mission. So I'm a new board member of an organization called ScienceCounts.org, and their goal is to try to encourage the funding of science, frankly, by improving the public understanding of science and enthusiasm for science. So it's going to be sort of an interesting challenge, I think, to try to work with these people. And it's a new organization, so we're still feeling our way somewhat. But I'm looking forward to the Science Counts efforts as well.